rocky bluff for which the town was named. $5 gold says Marshal Haggerty'll dismiss it, Jonas Roberts hollered. 5 says he don't, contended old Jake. Now that the new deputy's got his hands on the young'un, he'll keep him a while. All depends if Farrell's a mind to press a charge. Jonas Roberts shoved back his hat and swiped his forehead with his shirt sleeve. Anybody else, and they'd have let him fight it out. Guess we can't have no one letting loose on Montgomery Farrell now, can we? Abby bit her lip in frustration. What on earth had Blake been thinking? It's a shame Deputy Davis spoiled the fun. At her glare, Mag French tipped his hat to her with a yellow-toothed grin, then spat. Abby turned away. She wished she could throttle Blake herself, then wished he hadn't been hauled into the jail. All this for a few flattering words. True, Mr. Farrell's compliments had slid from his tongue as gold dust from a sluice box, but it was no more than any of the young men in town might have said, given the opportunity. And he had lingered as he bowed over her hand, held on perhaps longer than necessary. Blake had glowered like a ranch dog on a coon. Even then things might have been all right, if Mr. Farrell hadn't remarked how very much he had enjoyed his visit the previous evening, without mentioning at all that it was her father's company he'd shared, mainly. Blake had gone off like a cannon, but Abby had figured that was the worst of it. When he had stormed away, she thought he'd lick his wounds and be done. She watched the jail door for Blake to emerge, hang-dogged but free. He was temperamental, but gunplay. At least the fool boy was alive. Montgomery Farrell had never even drawn the gun that hung at his hip, though a man rarely invested in that fancy kind of hardware unless he could handle it. She shuddered to think if he had. As the door opened, she clasped her hands together at her chest, but Mr. Farrell came out alone and prepared to mount. Her heart sank. He must have pressed charges after all. Catching up her skirts, Abby flew to his side. "Mr. Farrell." He turned to her and tipped his hat with a slight bow that betrayed his southern breeding. It lost none of its elegance, even though his face was smudged, one sleeve askew, and dust up to his knees. "Miss Martin?" For a moment she faltered. "Blake's in jail?" That much was obvious. He opened his mouth to reply, but she rushed on. "Surely you know he intended you no real harm." "I'm afraid I know no such thing." He spoke softly in the manner of the South, but his voice was deadly serious. "Had he not possessed an inferior weapon, I might have been forced to kill him. I don't consider gunplay a game." Drawing herself up, Abby tightened her mouth into a determined line. "He's just a boy, and I'm certain it won't happen again, if you would just drop the charges against him." Montgomery Farrell hooked his thumbs into his belt. "And what would lead me to think that it won't? That rascal has a hornet in his hide." "It's all a misunderstanding. I'm awfully sorry for the trouble. I truly don't know what gave him the notion to behave in such a manner." "Don't you?" The ghost of a smile played on his mouth. She flushed. "Well, if I told him that my feelings are not what he thinks they are—" Montgomery Farrell ran a hand over the sleek sorrel neck of the stallion, loosening the reins from the hitch. "You believe his jealousy can be cured by a dose of truth?" Mr. Farrell smoothed back his hair and replaced his hat under the afternoon sun. His tone was cool, but no longer angry. "I'll speak to him. I'll speak to him right now." She flashed a smile and spun for the jail, her skirt swirling against her legs. Inside, she walked directly to the desk. "Afternoon, Miss Martin," Marshal Haggerty said. Behind him, Deputy Davis removed his hat with a bearish grin. He dwarfed the marshal, and the tight space smelled of him, like an animal's den. "Good afternoon. I've come to see Blake." Marshal Haggerty motioned her by, and she moved to the single stone cell of the Rocky Bluffs jail. Blake sat on the thin cot, head hanging and hands limp on his thighs. He was too old to whip, but looked like he deserved it anyway. His head came up. "Abby, what are you—" "I need to talk to you, Blake." He jumped up and encircled the bars with his hands. "This ain't a place for you." "It's hardly a place for you either. What have you gone and done?" "I won't stand for that Montgomery Farrell coming in here like he owns the whole darn town, making eyes at you with all that fancy talk. I warned him off, but he don't listen." Exasperation choked her, and Abby stamped her foot. "This is plain foolishness, and you've no right to be causing him trouble." Blake's face fell. "You're not taken with him?" "No, I'm not. But I'm not taken with you either." She paused, softening. "Oh, Blake, I have great affection for you, but I haven't a notion what made you carry on so. You've been itching over Mr. Farrell since he came. Promise it'll stop now." "Well, it won't exactly do me no good if you don't care for me anyway. Not that it much matters now." "I believe Mr. Farrell will drop the charges." "What charges?" "What charges? Maybe attempted murder, and I'll wager he knows the law." Blake cocked his head, shaking the hair from his eyes. "Are you being straight with me, or are you telling me all this to try to save my neck?" "I've been completely honest with you." He sagged. "I was afraid of that." "Give me your word you'll not bother him again." "You have it," he muttered. "Say it, Blake, on your honor." "I won't mess with Farrell no more, on my honor." He grinned, and Abby squeezed the knuckles that protruded from the cell, relief washing over her. "You'll find someone else to guard as ardently." He nodded slowly. "Maybe I will, but it won't be the same." He slumped down on the hard bunk against the wall. That settled, Abby rushed back out and searched for Montgomery Farrell. The narrow street cleaved the twin rows of single- and two-story board buildings, with false fronts feigning greater stature. Her eyes swept to McConnell's livery, where the smoke and noise of hot metal on an anvil rang into the air. Only God had kept Wes McConnell from hearing the ruckus and thrashing Blake in the street himself. If Pa had been at work at the newspaper across the way, he might have done the same. She scanned the hardware store, sporting the name of the new owner on the sign, Peterson Hardware. Across the street, she searched the general mercantile and dry goods, then the grocer's, where the Bailey sisters were haggling over something. The walkway by Mrs. Munson's clothier, the post office, and on down to Pa's news office was empty. Turning her head, Abby gazed the other direction. Town hall, lumber yard, bank, school, and the church, still closed up after the untimely loss of Reverend Peel. There were several horses tethered at the hitching posts, mostly before the Saloon Hotel, where the men were no doubt drinking off their excitement in the afternoon heat. Mr. Farrell's unmistakable horse was nowhere to be found. With annoyance, she realized he had gone, and with him her hopes of Blake's immediate release. Chapter 2. Abby raised her chin, climbed into her buggy, and started for the Farrell ranch. It was northeast of town, a good step farther than her own family's homestead.